Picture this. You stand in the shadow of something magnificent, golden light washing over your face like the warmth of a benevolent god. The Erdtree towers above you, its luminous branches stretching across the sky, painting the clouds in shades of amber and honey. Every leaf seems to pulse with divine energy. Every root appears to nurture the very ground you walk upon. This is beauty incarnate, the physical manifestation of grace itself, the beating heart of the lands between. But what if I told you that this radiant colossus, this seemingly divine protector that dominates every horizon, is watching you with an intelligence far more ancient and calculating than you could imagine? What if beneath that golden glow lies not benevolence, but hunger, not protection, but possession? Welcome, lore seekers, to another deep dive with Keen 7 Lore, where today we're peeling back the golden veneer to expose what might be Elden Ring's most insidious villain, one that's been hiding in plain sight, literally towering over us throughout our entire journey. The Erdtree isn't just a symbol, isn't merely a tool of the greater will. Evidence scattered throughout the lands between suggests something far more disturbing. The Erdtree is conscious, it's calculating, and it might be the true antagonist, pulling strings from roots to crown. This isn't some wild speculation born from staring too long at golden leaves. The breadcrumbs are everywhere, hidden in item descriptions, buried in environmental storytelling, whispered through the implications of what we witness. From Software has always excelled at hiding horror behind beauty, and the Erdtree might be their masterpiece of deception. Think about it. In a world where every faction wars for power, where demigods tear each other apart for fragments of divinity, there stands one constant, one unchanging presence that benefits from every death, every tragedy, every soul that departs its mortal coil. The Erdtree doesn't just observe the carnage, it feeds on it. The genius lies in how naturally we accept its presence. Of course there's a giant golden tree, of course it's divine, of course we should return to its roots when we die, but that acceptance, that unquestioning faith, is exactly what a perfect predator would cultivate. The most successful parasites don't kill their hosts immediately. They integrate so completely that the host can't imagine life without them. And that's precisely what we're going to explore today. How the Erdtree invaded, how it conquered not through force, but through dependence, and how its consciousness manifests in ways both subtle and terrifying. So, settle in, because we're about to journey through catacombs packed with corpses feeding golden roots, decode the true meaning behind Marika's desperate rebellion, and uncover why burning the Erdtree isn't just necessary, it's the only way to free the lands between from a prison disguised as paradise. Let's start with the invasion itself, because the protection of the Erdtree incantation contains one of the most revealing lines in the entire game. In the beginning, everything was in opposition to the Erdtree. Everything. Not some things, not certain factions. Everything opposed it. This golden god tree that seemed so natural, so essential to life in the lands between, was once recognized as an invader. The spell that now protects those faithful to the Erdtree literally commemorates a time when the entire world stood against it. That's not the reception you'd expect for a benevolent deity arriving to bless the land. If you're enjoying this deep dive so far, I'd genuinely appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. It makes a real difference in helping this video reach fellow lore enthusiasts through YouTube's algorithm. Your support means everything and helps keep these in-depth explorations coming. The invasion theory gains even more credibility when we examine the Elden Star's incantation, described as the most ancient of all incantations. Its description tells us that long ago, the Greater Will sent a golden star bearing a beast into the lands between. This wasn't a gentle arrival. This was a cosmic seeding, an intentional planting of something foreign into established soil. The language itself, sent, not gifted or blessed, implies purpose, strategy, intent. You send soldiers, you send spies, you send weapons. The greater will sent the Erdtree. But here's where it gets particularly insidious. The Erdtree didn't create new life or establish itself in virgin territory. According to multiple item descriptions and environmental evidence, it overtook something that already existed. The Primordial Crucible, sometimes referred to in older translations as the Great Tree. This is crucial because it establishes the Erdtree not as a creator, but as a usurper. The Crucible represented primordial life, chaotic and varied, where all life was blended together in a magnificent, if turbulent, mixture. The Erdtree replaced this natural chaos with order, but more importantly, it replaced independence with dependence. Consider the Crucible Knights, warriors who served Godfrey and draw their power from the primordial force that preceded the Erdtree. They're described as heroes of the old era, but after the Erdtree's rise, they became outcasts, their powers considered impure. Why would the arrival of divinity make previous heroes into pariahs? Unless, of course, that divinity saw them as threats to its new order, remnants of a system it needed to completely replace. The Erdtree didn't just want to coexist with the old ways, it needed to eliminate them entirely to establish its monopoly on life and death. The physical evidence of this parasitic relationship is literally underground, in every catacomb across the lands between. These aren't just burial sites, they're feeding grounds. The roots of the Erdtree wind through every catacomb, growing thick among the corpses, drawing something from the dead. The game doesn't hide this, it puts it on display. Those massive root systems aren't providing anything to the dead. They're taking from them. The architectural design of the catacombs, with bodies specifically placed near root systems, suggests an intentional cultivation system. The dead aren't being honored, they're being harvested. This harvesting system becomes even more sinister when you realize it replaced multiple pre-existing death rites. The death rite birds, spectral creatures that once burned the dead in ghost flame, were driven away when the Erdtree established its new order. The ancestral followers in Siofra River practiced their own death rituals, returning spirits to the stars rather than the Erdtree, and they're portrayed as primitive, backwards, wrong for not conforming to the Erdtree system. The Erdtree didn't just offer an alternative method of handling death, it monopolized death itself, making its root burial system the only acceptable way to die. Now, if you're finding value in this exploration so far, consider subscribing to support the channel and join our growing community of lore enthusiasts. Your support truly makes these deep investigations possible. But let's talk about consciousness, because a parasitic tree is one thing, a thinking, planning. Aware parasitic tree is something else entirely. The first major indicator comes from those infamous thorns blocking our entry to the Erdtree. The game explicitly states that these thorns burn all who approach. Spurn, that's an active verb, implying not just blocking but rejecting with intent, with prejudice, with will. These aren't just physical barriers that grew naturally, they're a conscious denial of entry. The thorns bear Radagon's seal, yes, but they grow from the Erdtree itself. The tree isn't just locked, it's actively keeping you out. The Erdtree avatars provide even more compelling evidence of consciousness. These aren't just magical constructs or defensive mechanisms. Each avatar is described as a fractured deity that protects minor Erdtrees. They manifest when their trees are threatened, suggesting not just a defensive response, but an aware response. They recognize danger, evaluate threats, and manifest physical forms to eliminate those threats. That's not the behavior of a mindless plant or even a simple magical construct. That's the behavior of something that perceives, evaluates, and acts with purpose. Consider, too, the distribution of golden seeds throughout the lands between. The description tells us they were released when the Elden Ring was shattered, spread as if life itself knew that its end had come. Life itself knew. The Erdtree, sensing catastrophe, dispersed seeds like a dying organism, ensuring its genetic survival. But this wasn't random scattering. Golden seeds appear at specific locations, often near churches or sites of significance, as if deliberately placed to ensure maximum chance of cultivation. This suggests not just consciousness, but strategic thinking, future planning, the kind of complex cognition we associate with intelligent beings. The warriors who form pacts with the Erdtree offer another window into its consciousness. The Guardian garb tells us that heroes who led lives of exemplary virtue could earn the honor of being reborn as Erdtree guardians after death. This isn't passive acceptance of worthy souls. This is active selection, evaluation, and transformation. The Erdtree judges who is worthy, transforms them according to its needs, and deploys them as eternal servants. That's not just consciousness. That's consciousness with an agenda. Even more telling is how the Erdtree responds to different types of beings. Those who live in death, the undead who exist outside the Erdtree's cycle, aren't just ignored. They're actively hunted by Golden Order fundamentalists. The Erdtree's system doesn't tolerate alternatives. It doesn't coexist with other forms of existence. When Godwyn's death corrupted the roots themselves, spreading death blight through the Erdtree's network, the response wasn't adaptation, but violent rejection. The Erdtree cannot abide anything that exists outside its system of control. Speaking of Godwyn, his situation provides unique insight into the Erdtree's nature. When he died, he should have returned to the Erdtree like everyone else. Instead, his soulless body became a cancer in the root system itself, spreading corruption that the Erdtree cannot purge. This suggests the tree isn't omnipotent within its own system. It can be infected, corrupted, hurt. More importantly, it suggests the Erdtree experiences something analogous to disease or pain. You can't sicken something that isn't alive, and you can't cause suffering to something that doesn't feel. The soul recycling system itself is perhaps the most insidious aspect of the Erdtree's control. Every being that dies in the lands between has their soul returned to the Erdtree through the root system. The game presents this as natural, as the proper order of things. But think about what this actually means. The Erdtree has made itself the mandatory intermediate step between death and whatever comes after. No soul can pass on without first being processed through the Erdtree's roots. It's not just parasitism, it's soul trafficking on a cosmic scale. The implications are staggering. Every war, every conflict, every death feeds the Erdtree. The shattering, which has caused untold thousands of deaths as demigods, and their armies clash endlessly. The Erdtree benefits from every fallen soldier. The endless cycle of tarnished, being revived to fight and die repeatedly. More souls for the roots. The tree doesn't just passively benefit from death. The entire system is designed to maximize death while presenting it as holy sacrifice. This brings us to Marika, and her story might be the most tragic and revealing of all. Marika the Eternal, goddess and vessel of the Elden Ring, was chosen by the Greater Will to be its representative in the lands between. She established the Golden Order, spread the Erdtree's influence, and seemed to be the perfect servant of this golden age. But something changed. Marika began to question, to doubt, and ultimately to rebel against the very system she had helped establish. The game gives us glimpses of Marika's growing disillusionment through various echoes and remembrances. She speaks of the Golden Order's imperfection, of its need to be questioned and challenged. But these aren't the words of someone having a philosophical crisis. These are the words of someone who has realized they're trapped in a prison of their own making. Marika didn't just serve the Erdtree. She was bound to it, literally and metaphorically. Her body became the vessel for the Elden Ring, which itself is housed within the Erdtree. She wasn't ruling from the Erdtree. She was imprisoned within it. The shattering of the Elden Ring wasn't an act of madness or grief, though it may have been triggered by Godwyn's death. It was an act of desperate rebellion, her attempt to break free from a system she had come to recognize as fundamentally wrong. Think about the sheer willpower required to shatter the source of your own divinity, to destroy the thing that gives you godhood. Marika chose potential oblivion over continued servitude to the Erdtree's system. But here's the truly horrifying part. Even after shattering the Elden Ring, Marika couldn't escape. The Erdtree imprisoned her within itself, crucified on a rune arc inside its hollow trunk. She's not dead. She's eternally suspended, suffering, unable to die, because the Erdtree won't let her soul pass on. This isn't justice. It's vengeance. The Erdtree is punishing her for her betrayal, keeping her conscious but powerless, a warning to anyone else who might question its authority. Radagon's role in this is equally telling. Where Marika rebelled, Radagon remained loyal, attempting to repair the very ring that Marika shattered. The game reveals that Radagon is Marika. They share the same body, which makes this internal conflict even more fascinating. It's as if the Erdtree's influence split her very being, creating a loyal enforcer to counter her rebellious nature. Radagon isn't just trying to repair the ring. He's trying to reassert the Erdtree's control over their shared form. The battle against Radagon and the Elden Beast takes place inside the Erdtree itself, in a vast golden void that seems to exist outside normal space. This isn't just a dramatic arena, it's the Erdtree's inner consciousness made manifest. The Elden Beast, described as the living incarnation of the Elden Ring, dwells here. But consider what that means. The Elden Ring shapes reality in the lands between, and its living form resides within the Erdtree. The tree isn't just housing the Elden Beast. They're symbiotically connected, perhaps even aspects of the same entity. The Elden Beast's attacks are particularly revealing. It wields golden energy that mirrors the Erdtree's light, creates patterns that resemble root networks, and its grab attack literally crucifies you, similar to Marika's imprisonment. These aren't random combat mechanics. They're expressions of the Erdtree's will made manifest through its guardian. The beast fights with the tree's power because it is an extension of the tree's consciousness. But let's examine the relationship between the Erdtree and the greater will more carefully, because this distinction is crucial to understanding the tree's true nature. Many assume the Erdtree is simply a tool of the greater will, a passive instrument of cosmic authority. But the evidence suggests something more complex, perhaps even adversarial. The greater will sent the Erdtree to the lands between, yes? But sending something and controlling it are two different things. Consider that the greater will has seemingly abandoned the lands between by the time of our journey. The two fingers, its representatives, are described as having no words, requiring vast ages to commune with the greater will. If the Erdtree were merely a puppet of the greater will, wouldn't it too be silent, inactive, waiting for orders that never come? Instead, the Erdtree continues its operations, maintaining its system, defending itself, pursuing its agenda despite the greater will's absence. This suggests the Erdtree has its own consciousness, its own goals that may have initially aligned with the greater will, but have since become independent. It's like a colonial governor who continues ruling long after losing contact with the homeland, pursuing policies that benefit their own power rather than serving their original mandate. The Erdtree isn't waiting for the greater will's return. It's actively maintaining and expanding its own dominion. The various endings of Elden Ring support this interpretation. In most endings, you don't restore communication with the greater will. You establish a new order using the Erdtree's existing framework. The tree adapts to new leadership rather than rejecting it, suggesting its primary concern isn't serving the greater will, but maintaining its own existence and power structure. Even in the Frenzied Flame ending, where you burn everything, the Erdtree's destruction is portrayed as necessary to truly end the current age. The Lord of Frenzied Flame ending is particularly revealing because it represents the complete antithesis of the Erdtree's order. The Frenzied Flame seeks to melt all life back into one, to undo the mistake of existence itself. But to achieve this, you must first burn the Erdtree, not defeat it, not repurpose it. Burn it entirely. This suggests the Erdtree is so fundamental to the current order that its mere existence prevents any true change. As long as the Erdtree stands, its system persists. Even the Age of Stars ending, where Ranni seeks to remove the influence of the outer gods entirely, requires the Erdtree's burning. Ranni's 1,000-year journey into the stars is meant to distance the world from the greater will's influence, but she recognizes that journey can't begin while the Erdtree remains. The tree isn't just a symbol of the old order. It is the old order, physically manifested and consciously maintained. So what does the Erdtree actually want? If we accept that it's conscious, that it has will and purpose, beyond simply serving the greater will, what drives it? The answer seems to be perpetual dominion through controlled recycling of souls. The Erdtree has created a perfect closed system where it alone mediates between life and death, where every soul must pass through its roots, where no existence is permitted outside its framework. This isn't mere survival, it's dominance through dependency. The Erdtree has made itself so essential to the cycle of existence in the lands between that most inhabitants can't imagine life without it. The golden blessings, the promise of returning to the Erdtree's roots, the entire structure of the Golden Order, all of it serves to reinforce the tree's indispensability. It's the ultimate monopoly, controlling not just resources or power, but the very nature of existence itself. The tragedy is that most inhabitants of the lands between genuinely believe the Erdtree is benevolent. They see its golden light as divine blessing, its roots as sacred, its order as natural law. This is the brilliance of the Erdtree's system. It doesn't need to enforce its will through violence when everyone willingly feeds themselves to it. The few who resist, like those who live in death or the merchants who discovered the frenzied flame, are portrayed as aberrations, threats to the natural order that must be eliminated. But perhaps the most damning evidence of the Erdtree's villainy is how it handles those who serve it most faithfully. The Erdtree Guardians, those heroes who earned the honor of eternal service, they're transformed into monstrous, tree-like beings, their individuality erased, existing only to defend the tree. The Erdtree avatars, described as fractured, broken pieces of something once whole. Even Marika, its greatest servant, ends up crucified within it. The Erdtree doesn't reward loyalty, it consumes it, transforming devotion into eternal servitude. The omnipresence of the Erdtree's image throughout the lands between takes on new meaning when viewed through this lens. Every church bears its symbol, every piece of sacred art depicts its glory, every prayer invokes its blessing. But this isn't just religious decoration, it's propaganda, constant reinforcement of the Erdtree's centrality to existence. You can't escape its image because it doesn't want you to imagine a world without it. The fact that we must burn the Erdtree to progress isn't just a gameplay mechanic, it's a thematic statement. Fire, specifically the Flame of Ruin, is the only force that can truly threaten the Erdtree. Not blade, not magic, not even the power of the demigods. Only flame can unmake what the greater will sent. And the game makes this choice agonizing, presenting it as sacrilege, as the ultimate sin against the divine order. But that's exactly what you'd expect from a parasite, making its removal seem like the worst possible option. Melina's role as kindling is particularly poignant in this context. She was born at the foot of the Erdtree, purposeless until she met us, and her entire existence seems designed to eventually burn the tree. Some theories suggest she's Marika's daughter, created specifically as a contingency plan, a way to destroy the Erdtree if necessary. If true, this means Marika foresaw the need to burn the tree long before she shattered the Elden Ring. She knew the only way to truly free the lands between was to destroy the Erdtree entirely. The revelation that the Erdtree might be hollow, or at least partially illusory, adds another layer to its deception. Several item descriptions and visual cues suggest that what we see isn't entirely real, that the golden radiance might be masking something far less divine. The Erdtree we perceive could be a projection, a beautiful lie covering something withered or corrupted. This would be the ultimate irony, millions of souls feeding themselves to an illusion, sustaining something that may not even be what it appears. When we finally enter the Erdtree after burning it, we find not a paradise, but a tomb. Marika's imprisoned form, the scattered remnants of the Elden Ring, the alien architecture of the Elden Beast's arena, none of it suggests divinity or benevolence. It's cold, empty, more like the inside of a vast organism than a holy sanctuary. This is what lies behind the golden facade. Emptiness that must be constantly filled with souls to maintain its appearance of glory. The various demigods' relationships with the Erdtree also reveal its true nature. Morgoth, the most loyal of Marika's children, defends the Erdtree with fanatical devotion despite being born an omen, cursed and reviled by the very order he protects. His loyalty isn't rewarded with acceptance, but with eternal servitude to a system that fundamentally rejects him. Morg, his twin, fled to the underground and established his own dynasty, recognizing perhaps that the Erdtree's order had no place for beings like them. Ricard's blasphemy, allowing himself to be devoured by the god-devouring serpent, represents another form of rebellion against the Erdtree. He sought power outside its system, even if it meant becoming something monstrous. "Together we will devour the very gods," he proclaims. And while we might initially assume he means the demigods, perhaps his ultimate target was always the Erdtree itself, the false god that dominates the lands between. Malenia and Miquella, born cursed despite their divine parentage, represent the Erdtree system's imperfection. Miquella, in particular, sought to create his own Erdtree, the Kuba Halig tree, as an alternative for those rejected by the Golden Order. But even this act of compassion was doomed to failure, the Halig tree withering without the original's parasitic power source. You can't replicate the Erdtree's dominance without becoming equally parasitic. The Erdtree's treatment of the Albinaurics, artificial beings created through unclear means, further demonstrates its exclusionary nature. These beings, despite having souls and consciousness, are rejected by the Erdtree's order, unable to return to its roots when they die. They're proof that the Erdtree system isn't about preserving all life, but about controlling specific types of life that fit its parameters. As we piece together these fragments of lore, a disturbing picture emerges. The Erdtree isn't a benevolent deity or even a neutral force of nature. It's a conscious, calculating entity that has enslaved an entire world through a combination of beauty, necessity, and systematic elimination of alternatives. It feeds on the souls of the dead while preventing any true passage to whatever lies beyond. It transforms its most faithful servants into eternal slaves. It imprisons those who rebel against it in states worse than death. The true horror of the Erdtree isn't just what it does, but how it makes its victims complicit in their own enslavement. Every prayer to the Erdtree strengthens it. Every burial in its roots feeds it. Every war fought in its name provides more souls for its consumption. The inhabitants of the lands between aren't just oppressed by the Erdtree. They actively sustain their own oppressor, believing all the while that they're serving something divine. This is From Software at their most subversive, hiding cosmic horror behind divine beauty. The Erdtree is everywhere in Elden Ring, visible from almost every location, a constant reminder of its presence and power. But that omnipresence isn't comforting. It's oppressive. A golden eye that never closes, roots that reach everywhere, branches that block out any sky that isn't painted in its light. The game asks us to commit sacrilege, to burn the symbol of divinity itself, and frames this act as necessary for any meaningful change. But it also shows us why so few would ever make that choice. The Erdtree has made itself synonymous with life, order, and meaning in the lands between. To destroy it seems like destroying existence itself. This is the perfect trap, making your own destruction appear to be the end of the world. When we finally defeat the Elden Beast and choose our ending, we're not just deciding the fate of the lands between. We're choosing whether to perpetuate the Erdtree system or forge something new. Even the good endings that maintain the Erdtree structure carry this sinister undertone. Have we really freed anyone? Or have we simply become the new managers of the same parasitic system? The evidence we've explored today paints the Erdtree not as a divine blessing, but as a conscious parasite that has perfected the art of exploitation. It invaded a world that universally opposed it, replaced existing systems with its own monopoly on life and death, and convinced its victims that servitude to it was not just desirable, but necessary for existence itself. It demonstrates consciousness through active rejection of threats, strategic planning, and vindictive punishment of those who rebel against it. The Erdtree's villainy isn't the cackling evil of a traditional antagonist. It's the cold efficiency of a perfect predator that has evolved beyond the need for violence because its prey willingly walks into its roots. It's the ultimate corruption of religious imagery, taking symbols of growth, life, and divinity and revealing them to be masks for consumption, control, and conscious malevolence. This theory recontextualizes the entire journey through Elden Ring. Every step taken under the Erdtree's golden light is a step through a predator's hunting ground. Every grace site that guides us forward is leading us along paths that ultimately serve the tree's purposes, even our rebellion against it. The tarnished, called back to the lands between, might not be heroes at all but antibodies in a system trying to preserve itself, or perhaps weapons in Marika's long game to finally destroy her captor. The beauty of From Software's storytelling is that they never explicitly confirm this interpretation. The Erdtree never speaks, never reveals its thoughts directly. We're left to piece together its nature from fragments, implications, and the horrifying consistency of its behavior. But once you see the pattern, once you recognize the consciousness behind the golden glow, you can never look at the Erdtree the same way again. So the next time you boot up Elden Ring and see that golden tree stretching across your screen, remember what might lurk behind that divine light. Remember the corpses feeding its roots, the souls trapped in its cycle, the goddess imprisoned in its trunk. Remember that beauty in From Software games often masks the deepest horrors, and the Erdtree might be their masterpiece, a villain so perfect it convinced an entire world to worship it. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into one of Elden Ring's most disturbing theories. If this exploration has changed how you see the Erdtree, or if you have your own evidence to add to this theory, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Every perspective adds another layer to our understanding of this incredible game's lore. And if you found value in this investigation, please consider subscribing to Keen 7 Lore. Your support makes these deep explorations possible, and there's so much more to uncover in the lands between and beyond. Hit that notification bell to join our growing community of lore seekers as we continue to unravel the mysteries that From Software has woven into their worlds. Until next time, keep questioning what seems divine. Keep looking for the horror behind the beauty, and remember, in the lands between, even the light itself might be your enemy. This has been Keen 7 Lore, and I'll see you in the next deep dive into gaming's greatest mysteries.